So we are glad to welcome Anastasia Shapovalova. She's the founder and director of Samara English School Firefly English. So during her receiving the SAT certificate, she was always assessed above standards by the official trainers. And I'm sure that this is due to her energetic and encouraging and motivating behavior. She successfully works with different types of students in different age groups and prepare them to pass Cambridge exam, even for the young learners. So let's welcome Anastasia.
Thank you. So accents and pronunciation is fun because when I was on sector, for example, we had one tutor, Steve, and he used to say a cup of tea and all that stuff. And we had a lot of all that stuff, and we had a lot of fun with other trainees. Well, hello everyone. As a child, I loved sitting on my grandfather's lap while he read me stories. I remember most of them, even though I'm now a grandparent too. As a child, I was blissfully unaware that as I listened, I was also learning new words and the ways in which those new words combined to communicate ideas and life lessons. This is a quotation by Karen Saxby, the author of the Story Fund series published by Cambridge University Press. So my name is Anastasia Shapovalova, and I'm going to tell you about reading stories with kids and their importance today. My formal education comes from Samara State University of Social Sciences and Education, and at first I didn't want to become a teacher. I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I graduated. The only thing I knew is that I wanted to create something big and something very important, and I wanted to travel and to study in Europe. So I applied to 7 French universities, and luckily I got accepted by 2 of them. I chose to go to the University of Nice, Sophia Antipolis, and that's the moment when everything changed. I came 2 weeks before the start of my master program, and just by chance I picked in one of the lessons lectures by Professor Shaun White. And it was completely different because she was so enthusiastic and she motivated her students a lot. Her course was called Learning Theory, and she prepares now, I'm sure, teachers of English for French schools. At that moment, I realized that teaching English, it's not just knowing the language, that there is an approach, and that your student success depends on what you do in class as a teacher. I decided not to continue my studies. I decided not to continue my studies because I didn't want to become a teacher in a French school. I decided to start my own private language school. The next step I made was to get a CELPE certificate. This I did last summer in Warsaw. My school opened 2 years ago, and presently I teach about students. Actually, I work from early morning till early evening, but I'm very happy about that. Okay. Just like Karen Saxby, I read a lot with my granny in my childhood, and there is no question that reading stories is important to learning, especially to learning a language. So I know I'd like you to work in your groups and just share some ideas why reading is important for us as teachers of English. Go ahead.
But I can say that
fairy tale stories. I think it's increase their imagination. They can dream, and when they read, of course, they remember, and they study a lot of new. I think reading is good for us. It's my opinion.
Yes, I agree.
So of course, children should read a lot. Read, translate, study words. So reading is very good.
Really, I'm doing different tasks.
Yes,
Different tasks, of course.
and I think it's good for children to get them a chance to write some fairy tales themselves.
Yeah, to create stories.
To dream,
Yes.
yes.
I will talk about that as well.
I think it's my opinion.
Yeah, thank you. Okay.
Right, it's no secret that there are two sides to our brain.
Yeah.
And the right side is something that's responsible for creativity and being very imaginative. And the left side is for being serious and very logical and strict in our grammar ideas. So making two connections between our brain parts is a good boost for creating imagination. And making silly connections between what we think and what we want to say improves our speaking skills as well. It relaxes children.
Yeah, that's true.
And then making connections make us happy. So that's the thing.
Reading is fun. That's why my topic is reading is fundamental. Okay? Yes, thank you.
There is also some interesting idea about reading. Could you please speak for us?
Yeah, we tend to while you're reading, you can gain a lot of vocabulary. What's more important that not only getting your vocabulary, you have to understand how language naturally works. So, for example, a lot of national communication, and when reading text in English, we have to understand that there are some things that we have to write down and to learn to make our speech more clear. So, for example, when you have two different words, make and mistakes, and people don't know how to use them together, so they have to think a lot before they start using it. But when you understand the communication is make mistakes, you don't have to be like do mistakes or you can't do that and anything else. They help greatly and they make the speech more fluent and you know how to use these words and how to explain it to you and other people. And then
So you mean if a child reads a story himself or herself? Okay, aloud. Okay, yeah. Thank you. More ideas? Yeah.
Well, our group's idea is also to, just a second, to to view different mentality in these books. I mean,
Like values maybe.
yeah, values and how people see the life in a different country and so on. And one more is
broadens your mind.
Yes.
and practice scanning. It's like an exam skill which is important.
Yeah, we can practice scanning, so preparing for exams, using pictures, a lot of opportunities. Okay, this is just, this is what I found. So, because all of these benefits of using stories, now of being a teacher, I use a lot of stories in my classroom. And let me just share my experience and how I found it to be effective. So first I'd like you to watch a short video from one of my lessons. Should I make? Should I do? Please help us. When we read a story, my students don't see it as a typical lesson, as I'm not teaching them directly. I'm working with academic styles this year, and all the stories are taken from this student's book. These reading times are separated from the teaching components, as they're not included in a unit. but they do incorporate the things that we are working on, of course. Why is the lesson different? As you can see, we are sitting in a circle, doing seemingly unrelated activities like miming, making noises, or drawing something in the air, and any others. My students are relaxed and they get stress-free experience of natural language. I think that's very important for learning. What is also important is that a story should be relevant to my students' interests and level of English, of course. And if it's like that, it helps them escape from everyday routine, like homework, housework, some problems maybe with their classmates and so on. They sympathize with the characters and have fun. According to Karen Saxby, while reading, children relate to certain characters. Well, it can be just like a background, but you can stop it. Alexei, can you please stop the video? Thanks. So according to Karen Saxby, while reading, children relate to certain characters and they can imagine pictures of certain characters and places too. They are mentally adding all kinds of details to the story. And the students know that at the end of the lesson, there is always a video connected to the story. The purpose of it's like a treat for them. They are waiting for this video. And the purpose of the video is for my students to prove their ideas and to see if the pictures they've created in their minds are similar to the ones in the video. Well, the atmosphere, children are having fun, but why is this important for me as for a teacher? Reading is important because it's exercising different parts of their brain, using different analytical processes. In short, it's enhancing the ability to learn and remember. For example, when a child relates to a character, he or she is more able to understand the ideas and to use them in context and to keep that knowledge. Just a week ago, we read a comic and about a girl with a superpower who was late for school. On her way, she was about to hit a wall or something. I don't really remember, but well, and people in the streets shouted, "Watch out, Flash!" Yes. And at our next lesson, my young student came into class and she saw her classmate falling from a chair. And you guess what? she shouted, "Watch out!" So in this way, I was very surprised and I was very happy because in this way, language becomes more meaningful, and that's what we need to have in our classrooms. Another factor, so here is about meaningful context. Another factor that I want to present for you to think about, which I'm sure you may already be aware of, is the fact that we all live in an information-rich society. I'm sure you've heard about this. Some people call it information overload, right? How does this affect children? Actually, we're not sure yet what effect information overload has on our kids. But we do know that children, especially under 10s, are going to use digital technologies more than any generation before. And they already do. We have absolutely no idea of what the world will be like when the children we teach today are young adults. But we can be sure that information will come so easily, we can't even imagine. Even now, my teenage students, they don't type words in an electronic dictionary anymore. They just take a photo of a picture and their phones show them the translation or the definitions.
Is there a bad translation?
Well, probably yes, but I think it will improve. Of course it will improve, and in the future, and children are going to use it more and more. My students aged 9, 8, 10, They asked me for my Instagram nickname because they have Instagram accounts, they have VK accounts, and they communicate easily with their friends, with their classmates. But of course, it's good to have all these. But in my opinion, children don't have skills to cope with all this information properly. I think nowadays they don't go deep into the information. They just grab onto information randomly. And they can't focus their attention. That is very important for learning. Why does reading can help us? Why do stories can help us? If a story matches their level and interests, children become focused and they start to enjoy not being distracted. They go deep into it and start thinking. I even think that this is more structured thinking because they think about the consequences. And they also analyze, as it was mentioned, like when we study values, for example. We read the old donkey story about a month ago, and we discussed the message of this story, ending up with being respect all the people and animals. I think it's good that our children can think about these aspects too as well, not only learning vocabulary and grammar and structures and so on. So how can you bring this idea to your classroom? Let me just show you my experience of doing that. So I have another short video, but it's about the activities we do. The video I mentioned, it's included inside online resources for teachers. Well, first time we just read a story and listen to a story. Sometimes I give my students a task, just to maybe ask them a general question like, read the text and how does Paul and Sue help Molly, for example. After that, I always give my students some time to reread the text at their own pace. That's very important because children need to have time to process the information and to deeper understand some ideas in the story. Then we start learning. How can we make it fun? Well, here are just some ideas of what I do, and you might do as well. You can read the story in different voices. With the old donkey story, we practiced adverbs. And first, my students underlined all the things the characters said angrily, happily, and kindly. And then we practiced saying these phrases with those feelings. It was fun, and as Matthew mentioned, it's also a good way to practice pronunciation. What else? You can read the story. I use clapping a lot, and you probably noticed that on my video. To practice listening skills, to listening for keywords, for example, I ask my students to listen to some keywords. They are on the board, or sometimes I just tell them the page in their students' books. that contains our vocabulary. So they listen to this story and they clap every time they hear these words. So once again, they read the story, listen to it, and they identify the keywords. Additionally, I use miming. We can listen to a story, or one child reads it aloud, and other children mime it. We did it with the stories with Family Robinson, when my young learners mimed the wind blowing, and the sheep hitting rocks, and the father building a house. Trust me, it's a lot of fun. Okay. Yes, it is. I also like stories because the experience creates an opportunity to talk about the story. You can encourage your young learners to describe their favorite person, their favorite character, part of the story or picture. Their creativity might be developed by drawing new story pictures or even by writing their own short stories as a result. It might be useful in preparing your students for YLE tests. For example, for speaking part, where they are supposed to create a story based on a set of pictures, right? So we can use the pictures from a story in the next lesson, for example, and ask them to retell the story. As you can see, we had a lot of fun, and the students were quite engaged. To sum up, I would like to recommend you encourage your students to read stories because it's a great way to learn the language. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'm sure that you have lots of questions to be asked concerning the ways of how to create stories or how to work with our different levels. So, anyone with a question? I know that there are some active users. Just one question. Do you have any performance probably after reading books and so on? I mean, do you perform the stories?
Actually, in these students' books, like I had in this class, there is a separate unit. It's called like play or something, like plays. So now we do it when we have this unit, not with the stories. No, the stories we read just mostly for pleasure and just do some activities with vocabulary and well, but we don't.
Well, do I understand correctly that your school is a kind of extra education for children? I mean,
Yes.
they come here in the evening, like courses, right?
Yes, of course. Yes.
I see.
Not pleasure. It's private school, private English language.
I see.
Okay, I've got a question
Yeah.
for you. How do you work with kids after reading? So what are after reading tasks for them, sir?
Well,
Do you ask them to summarize the text or to learn them by heart?
No. Well, summaries are good, but to learn by heart, no. I don't use this approach. Well, maybe with, I don't know, my YGE or GET students, and just for speaking parts, because unfortunately we have to do it as teachers, because we have to prepare our students for OGE and YGE, and the speaking part there is not communicative. So, but no, with young learners, not of course. Sometimes, well, summarizing, but I ask questions, like for details, yeah, ask them for details. Like, was he happy, was she happy, how did he feel?
So you don't ask them to
Well,
summarize?
questions, yeah, but summary, no, not with that stories, no. And not learning by heart, of
So
course.
they can learn by heart short dialects.
Dialects,
Short
yes.
parts of the text.
Yeah, dialects, yes. Also, there is a separate unit about dialects. So, yes, there are dialects. It's based on the grammar we were learning. So, not with the stories.
Stories is difficult to learn.
Yeah,
And they don't like to learn stories.
of course.
It's
They,
boring for them.
yeah.
I think that it's a very good idea to make a recap or summary of the text we have read is to make a small picture. Some kind of draw the characters, what they read or what they heard, and then according to this picture, maybe should retell them. So some kind of this.
Yeah, it looks like a project, I think. Yeah, you can base a project on the story, why not? Just be creative. Stories, they give a lot of opportunities to just be creative.
And have you ever tried let them do their own, to write their own stories?
With some students, yes, but not this year. Yeah, of course we did it when I prepared for movies. Last year I had a group, I prepared them for movies. And in speaking test, sometimes I ask them not to describe a picture, but to write some sentences about the picture, for example.
Any more questions?
I have one more question.
Okay.
I planning to get South away now. So they have special.
They don't have it anymore.
Really? So
Yes, I'm so angry about that. Yeah, I really wanted to pass Save while I leave, but they don't have this
Right
extension
now.
anymore. They don't.
They have TKT while
They have TKT while I leave, but it's not enough.
Yeah, it's not the same.
So now I'm looking for some professional development in that sphere, like
So you're going to look for something. Seoul has some kind of courses.
for young learners,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah.
But, well, my next level course is data models, 1, 2,
Yeah.
3, and well, maybe young learners.
I get it. So thank you very much. Some other questions?
I've got a question. Do you use such activities like clapping, miming, or the same with adults, with adult groups?
Let me think.
Because reading can be fun also at this kind of
Yeah,
classes
we do
with
read,
adults.
but it's a
with adult
different
courses.
type of reading. We don't read for pleasure, I think, not like with kids. Because, I don't know, kids have more imaginative minds than adults do.
And I'm going to test it today. Now interactive part, we're going to have an interactive part inspired by you and so, and teachers are going to show their creativity in working with a comic book.
Yeah, comics, great. No, actually, no, clapping and I don't. Sometimes we have like fun with some, I call it crocodile game, when my students take a piece of paper, for example, I don't know, I'm riding a bike, and they have to show it and something like that, but just for, I don't know, 3-5 minutes before the lesson, and that's all.
So I think we should thank Anastasia. If there are no other questions left, maybe she can stay with us a little bit later.
Yeah.
Just some questions. Okay, so thank you.